Hi, this tutorial explains the functionality of EnterpriseOne kernels at a high level and shows how to use Server Manager to configure automatic as well as on-demand kernel refresh. This enhancement also includes a related logging function called log all SAW processes called stack. This feature is available as of Tools Release 9.2.6. To optimize overall system workload into logical segments, EnterpriseOne assigns processing tasks to various kernel processes running on an enterprise server. These kernels use static and dynamic database connections at process initiation and maintains those connections to a database for the entire process lifecycle. Understanding how static and dynamic EnterpriseOne database connections work and their impact on the JD Edwards system is important. Static kernels are the most at risk to lose a database because database connections are only established at login, and by design, these kernels are never logged out during the process lifetime. Once database connections are lost by a static kernel, prior to this enhancement, they could only be restarted by manually killing the process and restarting it. If the connection to the database is temporarily lost for any reason such as network unavailability, the kernels have fault-tolerant logic to retry the connection for up to 75 seconds reusing the same connection. If the connection cannot be reestablished within 75 seconds, the process fails. Functionality is added to Server Manager to refresh database connections in static environments either periodically or on demand. It is important to know that the intent of refresh is primarily to re-establish the database connections without resorting to a destructive kill action. As such, a refresh preserves the other logical state in the kernel, and the kernel maintains the same internal functional state as it was prior to the refresh of the database connections. In order to avoid disrupting normal processing, the JD Edwards automatic kernel refresh logic only executes on an idle kernel process. Basically, a refresh involves a logout and a bootstrap login, which reestablishes the database connections either using existing connections or establishing new connections, thus ensuring the connections are valid. This logout login process does not kill a process or establish a new process. It reuses the existing process with re-established database connections and returns the kernel to its prior state. You can use the Refresh Environments button to force a refresh for all static environments and call object kernels, which are dynamic kernels. For example, in production environments, you might use the on-demand function if you are performing database patching during a planned maintenance window. In this case, you would not be constrained by a short loss in system availability. You must have administrator privileges in Server Manager in order to configure automatic kernel refresh, which is set in the security section of the enterprise server. Within the enterprise server instance, in the database configuration, the Bootstrap environment refresh interval setting allows you to set the automatic refresh environmental interval for all static environments. Values can be set in 1 hour increments 0 to 24. If the value is set to 0, then no automatic refresh will occur for static environments. The default value is 3600, 1 hour. You must have administrator privileges in Server Manager in order to perform an on-demand kernel refresh. Select the enterprise server that you wish to trigger an on-demand kernel refresh. In the Instance Properties section, click the Refresh Environments button. The system displays a confirmation dialog that this will refresh static environments in system kernel processes and will trigger all call object kernels to recycle. Enhanced logging functionality for an enterprise server is accessed by clicking the Log All SAW Processes call stack button. This deep diagnostic tool can be used to determine the root cause for why a kernel did not respond as expected. This diagnostic function is not necessarily restricted to debugging kernel refreshes. It can be helpful to debug any suspected kernel anomaly. For details on the API to implement this functionality, refer to the JD Edwards EnterpriseOne Tools REST API for Server Manager guide at docs.oracle.com/en. Within the document, search for the string refresh environments, release 9.2.6. For more information, visit us at learnjde.com. Thanks for watching.